I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Health for October 9th, 2018. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Board of Health, everyone. Minutes, July 24th, 2018.
I need to abstain, Mr. Chairman.
I move we approve the minutes from July 24th, 2018.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
301. Thank you. All right. Citizens' time. Is there anyone here who is not on the agenda who has any issue or concern to bring before the Board of Health? Subcommittee reports. Verizon Wireless Subcommittee article and discussion. Do you have an update?
I do. The article that was included in our minutes was very descriptive of the, I believe it was the selectmen's meeting that authorized, or was prior to the authorization for the subcommittee to study the small cell application that Verizon has presented to the town. We have met twice since we started, and our last meeting was last week, and our mission is to come up with a policy about small cell tower, or not towers, but installations throughout the town, because we need to have one. And as of the meeting last week, unfortunately, the FCC published like 2 days before requirements that kind of are requiring significant changes to what we were going to approve last week. And so comments on the proposed changes are due this week. We're going to meet, or early next week, we're going to meet on the 17th and hopefully approve the policy. In the meantime, since Verizon applied, AT&T has put in an application as well. It's slightly different from the Verizon one. The Verizon one is going to put these units on telephone poles, and my understanding of the AT&T one is that it's slightly different in that I think there is one existing on the water tower at the present time, and they may be wanting to do some other things, not using telephone poles. And so there's a lot of stuff swirling around right now, and it's not as clear cut as, you know, you approve it or you don't approve it, and on the basis on what you can not approve it is very, very limited. And so that's where we are. So our next meeting is September 17th. In preparation for the selectmen's meeting on September 22nd, at which time they will vote on the policy.
Did you say September?
September.
I mean October. Yes, I haven't switched my calendar yet. All of those dates are in October.
So is this a subcommittee made up of all
It's-
boards in town? We have no
It's all
purview
board
over.
members, the police department,
Gotcha.
the fire department.
There's no Board of Health purview over
citizen-
this whatsoever. It's just,
None.
I gotcha.
It's just, we're to be included.
Yep.
Because we're a board.
Have you been asked about any public health issues, the small cell towers?
Right, the first meeting that I
That's what I
went
was
to, I
thinking.
went prepared with questions, because that's our purview. And in the research that I did, which was fairly extensive, there's not that much out there. That, first of all, there are a few studies that are inconclusive. I couldn't find one study that's conclusive that there are health hazards associated with these radio frequency waves that come out of the installations. And so the net of that is that for now they're not an issue. Health reasons are not a reason for declining or, you know, disproving the permit.
You can't cook food by them.
No, you can't cook food by them.
All right.
They're, just so, you know, so that you know, the small cells are meant to augment, I believe, the current macro towers that are out there, and also to provide the basis eventually for 5G, which will have to be disseminated through these small cells. They don't travel as far, from what I understand, and I've learned a lot. They don't travel, the waves don't travel as far as the 4G ones, so it's the thing of the present and the future, and 5G is coming.
That's great. Any questions for Libby?
Do we need to approve these, Mr. Chairman?
No. No. Application, thank you.
I think
I have to approve it.
August 2nd is something else. Isn't that the
That was
The-
postponed.
That was postponed.
post-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Postponed.
the report was postponed.
Are we supposed to take it up tonight?
Well, it's the different subcommittee, I think. It's the,
August 2nd was the discussion of Cafe S.
Oh, I think we postponed it because David wasn't,
right.
okay.
Police trap.
We're not talking about that this evening, but you want to give an update?
I will start if Mr. McSweeney.
I can add some color
Thank you.
commentary, sure.
The August 2nd subcommittee involved the Cafe Escadrille, grease trap variance, and sewer lines along Ray Ave. As you know, there have been significant issues around that variance. At the time, on August 2nd, we had received the results of 2 camera events which took place in those sewers at that time, and we had members of the Cafe Escadrille as well as members representing the company who makes the
Protein matrix.
protein matrix, which is used to break down fog, fats, and oils and grease. And at that time, we discuss it. At this point, we are letting it go and see what happens. The DPW will continue to clean those lines, and at this point in time, we will have a discussion in the future with both Cafe Escadrille and possibly another restaurant who also impacts that line, possibly impact that line, which is Bedford's. And at this point in time, we are just waiting to see. I spoke to Mr. Sanchez, and at this point, there are no significant issues.
So the member of the community whose work is downstream of that, Mr. Starr?
Has not had any issues.
Has not had any issues since.
Correct, yeah. So we feel we are as close to a clean starting point or a clean slate for the sewer lines as possible. And we're just gonna kind of wait and see, still with the existing conditions and variances in place. And we do think there's some potential impact being contributed by Bedford's as well that we wanna.
Yeah, okay. Although Bigford's had said before.
Right.
There weren't any issues with that.
Correct, that's their
Okay,
claim.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
it's a very complicated
It is.
situation. It's very much like the vessels in the heart and vessels in the vasculature with turbulence here and turbulence there and dead zones here. So what I learned is, think of it as the vascular system within the body, and try to keep that in mind as you try to ascertain what's going on in this very complicated sewer system. That's my comment.
Okay, I'm gonna be thinking about Burlington and the vascular system.
That's correct.
Okay. Applications for, we don't have to approve that.
No.
That's just a follow. Applications for site plan approval and special permit. Applicant 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers, Cambridge Street LLC. Good evening, please sign in, give us your names.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Oh, Attorney
staff.
Vaughn.
Pleasure to be before you this evening. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein representing the applicant tonight. With me tonight is Chris Sparagus, who is civil engineer of record for the project. He's with Williams and Sparagus, and also John Welch, who is the director of construction for Herb Chambers Company. So pleased to be before you in connection with this. This is for the proposed construction of a new Porsche dealership building that would be located at the property at 64 Cambridge Street. Just by way of background, I'm sure that you're familiar with the existing building where Porsche and Audi are currently co-located in the same building at 62 Cambridge Street. They've been in that building for some time. Based upon requirements that are coming down from high above, from both Porsche and Audi, the desires to have those two different brands separated, so they're in their own separate identity, separate building. So the proposal that has been submitted, which is consistent with what was approved by town meeting by way of a zoning change last spring, is to have a new building located at 64 Cambridge Street, which would be the new Porsche dealership building. Would be a handsome building, as you might imagine,
A
something.
handsome building.
Handsome building, an
Oh,
attractive building.
well,
Our
that
architect
changes
is not
everything.
here, but we do have a rendering of the building, but it is a building which you might find to be consistent with the brand and the image that they're looking to have there. So this proposal also allows for a lot of the outdoor inventory parking that's out there today to be stored within and below the building. Approximately 85 of the vehicle inventory spots would be within the building and therefore housed in a secure setting. So the drainage design for the site is very much consistent with what's out there today. As the board may recall, the parking lot itself was constructed about 3 years ago, I believe, after review by this board, and I think Chris can give a quick overview if you'd like, just that the drainage system is very analogous to what was designed before, so.
Well, a handsome building would sell me right away.
There you go.
We are here for making sure drainage and demolition all goes perfectly. So, could you give us an overview, please?
Sure, thank you. This is on. You guys can hear me okay?
No, you gotta turn it on.
I don't think it's on.
Okay, I got a nod from the gentleman.
It's really for the camera, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, for the record, my name is Chris Sparagus from the Engineering Survey Office, Williams and Sparagus. I'm a registered professional engineer here in the Commonwealth, and working on this project together with Herb Chambers and Mark's office. What you see before you is just a pretty picture showing the number 64 Cambridge Street site highlighted. In the yellow line represents the property line. You can see the existing Porsche Audi building located, here's the north arrow here, just to the west, Cambridge Street. And then, of course, we're talking two ramps on 128 at the intersection of Cambridge Street. In the existing condition, this is our existing conditions topographic plan, and the property is highlighted in pink, approximately 1.5 acres, which slopes approximately 5 feet across the site from a high of elevation 95 up here to the west, and then 5 feet lower to elevation 190 across the site. In the existing condition, we have a series of deep sump catch basins that collect surface runoff from the paved surfaces, and almost the entire property is paved in that overflow parking area today. The only area that's not paved is this area that I've highlighted here in yellow. That's an existing gravel area where there used to be a building on the site. That building has since come down. Everything else just about is paved, with the exception of our landscape strip, which you see very clearly as you drive by the site on Cambridge Street. Stormwater in the existing condition, as part of that previous plan, is collected, as I said, in a series of deep sump catch basins that go to a series of sediment trap removal devices, a proprietary device, and then into a subsurface infiltration gallery that looks like this. So all of the stormwater is collected and treated via that treatment chain, and then treated back into the ground. Of course, that was the subject of a previous submittal. When we took a look at the Porsche Audi building, the new Porsche building, for number 64, we wanted to be and remain consistent with this existing condition. And because these improvements are so new, relatively new, what we're hoping to do is try to reuse these subsurface chambers. Will be carefully excavated along with the proprietary treatment devices, because they are relatively expensive. So proposal. This is a rather large plan set. It does at 16 sheets, so bear with me. This is our proposed layout, which you saw on the very first rendering sheet. Pink, of course, is the property line. The proposed building now will take up much of the previous paved surface, so we'll have a lot less pavement, although we will have a slight increase in impervious surface. Of course, this drainage design and our approach also had to comply with DEP stormwater management regulations. A very small portion of our site does fall within 100 feet of a wetland that's located out to the east here. So the buffer zone just comes onto the property, so we'll be filing with the Conservation Commission a notice of intent. But we also comply with the town stormwater management regulations with our proposed drainage design. So our grading scheme changes a little bit as compared to the existing condition. You remember that the site slopes about 5 feet across the entire site. So with this big building, portion one had to be level. And so we're going to be picking up the site a little bit on this end and extending the height of the retaining wall that runs along the property line on the east side in order to really just create a more flat area. There are many entrances and exits from the building all the way around with our circular flow of traffic around the building. We are proposing a new curb cut on Cambridge Street at this location, which will serve the 64 Cambridge Street address. And then stormwater management-wise, we are going to continue collecting stormwater runoff in a series of deep sunk catch basins and run them to one of two proprietary devices before discharging into one of two now, infiltration gallers that are going to be consistent of the same model and manufacture of that underground chamber that's in use today, which is a Cultec 330 HD chamber. Note is that this property does lie within a Zone 2 to a groundwater drinking supply, although it doesn't belong to the town of Burlington, it belongs to the city of Woburn. And so because we're in the Zone 2, this is considered a critical area, and we're meeting those additional requirements of additional recharge into the groundwater, so 1 inch of runoff instead of half an inch, and providing enough pre-treatment to get us to at least 44% before going into the main BMP area. This particular selection of BMP also allows us to help Burlington get some credit points for phosphorus removal. So we'll be working closely with engineering. That's one of the new aspects of the new MS4 permit, which really targets certain pollutants of concern. And it seems in these parts, it's particularly phosphorus that they're looking to try to remove. And it's BMP based, and there are a series of calculations. We've included them in the stormwater report that shows a credit for using certain BMP devices. So that's a quick overview.
That's great.
Of course, Mark and I are here to answer questions.
Christine, any concerns with any of this?
Just a little more on background. As you know, and as Attorney Vaughn mentioned, this was before you in 2014 because they acquired the property Herb Chambers acquired the property at 64 Cambridge Street. And the improvement since then was to demolish 2 existing buildings that were previously there and to pave the site, basically. And during the course of that, the demolition work, they did a Phase 2 site assessment, which was reviewed in 2014. They also did another site assessment upon demolition of those 2 buildings, taking some samples from an old area of an old oil water separator and another area in the back building. And all those samples, soil and groundwater, came out clean. The only concern that I have, and that's addressed with condition number 1, is that the sampling round that was done for the Phase 2 was relatively shallow. And with the excavation of the garage, they'll be going deeper than that. So condition 1 addresses, the requirement to report anything to the board that may be at greater depth. As the history of the site back in the 40s and 50s was heavy equipment storage and servicing facility.
There's no comment about depth, it just is a general statement.
Right, but, so, with any excavation.
Well, what does that mean, that they would report? It says, Town of Burlington Toxic Hazard Materials bylaw requires that the Board of Health be notified of releases. How would they know if there's a release? Are they gonna take samples?
Well, primarily with visual olfactory, finding discarded pieces of equipment or that type of thing.
One other question?
Please.
Just for education, there were 23 soil samples taken, and it was clean. One sample did have asphalt fragments and coal ash, so that sort of nullified any finding. Could you, I haven't seen this before in a
Sure.
report, so would you just for the public and for education, just explain this to us?
So 2 points with that. The first being that there were polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons detected in a sample, and they were slightly above the reportable concentrations for this site. They, during this phase 2, they did run the risk characterization and showed that it was the equivalent of a permanent solution with no conditions, meaning that there's no risk from the levels they found. The second piece is that under the Massachusetts contingency plan, if you find PAHs in soil samples where you also find asphalt and/or coal ash or wood ash, you can negate you can credit the PAHs detected to the presence of the asphalt or the coal ash, because in fact, those common products found in fill and at many urban and suburban areas, you'll find fragments like that.
So the land is pretty clean, very
Yeah.
clean, very, very clean. I was just wondering, and as you brought, as our engineer brought it up, or the proponent's engineer, considering what it was in the 40s or 50s, is there any evidence of, once you start digging down, that you're gonna find big pieces of old equipment? Have you seen anything of like that in your reviews?
We haven't. We read the same reports that Christine referenced, and we did a series of 5 deep holes back at the end of July. I believe Ms. Mathis was also present for that testing, and we didn't find any evidence of any that type, anything that might be, fall under the MCP, guidelines.
And there were 13 proposed conditions. Are there any issues with any of those?
No, I assume these are the ones that you shared on Friday?
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Thank
the
you.
conditions are acceptable, and obviously, if anything is encountered, we certainly know what the regulatory requirements are for reporting, so, yeah, the conditions are fine.
I'm just interested, nothing to do with this. What's gonna happen to the part of the building where Audi is? Is that gonna be
So
still Audi?
the existing Porsche Audi building at 62 would become Audi only.
Okay.
So they would just have more, room to breathe in there for Audi purposes only, so.
And knowing that the current 64 was used for parking lot for, I guess, supply of cars, where's that going to be now?
Well, actually, they're gonna be able to have the vast majority of them inside this new building, so there'll be 85 cars stored underneath the first level of the building. So the vast majority of inventory would be stored within the building, and then Herb Chambers has also acquired other property up in Billerica, where they store vehicles as well, to
Great.
kind of free that up.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions,
Please.
if you don't mind. So you mentioned that you're going to be increasing the impervious surface of 64, correct? Is it by a substantial amount? How much are you increasing it by?
It's not by a substantial amount. Do you remember that yellow rectangular area?
Yes.
That area now becomes impervious as
Gotcha.
part of the design.
Oh, so that's the only increase in footprint.
And we are encroaching into the existing landscape island out in the
Right.
front of the property ever so slightly, but those are the two areas.
And you mentioned that you're going to try to reuse the stormwater management system that's already there. Was that just for 64, just for the parking lot? Or was that also taking off water from the current building?
So that was strictly for the new parking lot at 64.
Okay, so no other water was being funneled through there, it was just for the parking lot?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there any condition to, and I saw a little bit, I just want to make sure that we're covered, that if they damage that and that they need to fix it or replace it, do we need a condition around that? I mean, it's probably kind of,
Well, under the stormwater management handbook, they would have to
They'd have
put
to
it, you
anyways.
know, if
Okay.
they, during excavation, if they damage one of the Coltech chambers, they'd have to
Have to
replace it
replace it
because it won't
anyways.
perform its required, you know, infiltration rates or TSS removal.
that's all the questions I have. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
If there are no other questions for our presenters, the chair will entertain a motion with regard to this site plan and special permit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the the application for site plan and special permit for 64 Cambridge Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Appreciate your time.
Good to see
Thanks.
you, Attorney Vaughn.
Nice to see you, as always, Dr. Saltzman, all of you. Go Red Sox.
Yeah.
He had to think of some closing statement. He chose Go Red Sox. All right. Variances. Gong Cha, 90 Middlesex Turnpike, external grease trap, external grease interceptor. I don't know if you know this, but Gong Cha, Cha is tea. Gong means dedicated to.
Yes. It's a very-
Dedicated to tea.
Yes.
Oh, good evening. My name.
Yeah, have a seat, relax.
Okay.
Relax, we're.
And please sign in.
and please sign in. Give us
Good evening. My name is Dave. Yes, I'm the co-owner of Gongcha, and I'm here tonight to request a variance for the external grease trap.
Great.
Um,
Hang on a second.
Sure.
Marlene, can you give us more details here?
I can. So this specialty tea establishment, food establishment, will be going into the Burlington Mall. And they are before the board to request a variance for an external grease interceptor. Their food is not going to generate any fats, oils, or grease. They're also in a location that is not previously connected to the existing external grease interceptor at the mall. So my recommendation to the board is to vote to approve the variance from Section 4, Part A, and allow the new food service establishment to operate without installing an external grease interceptor with the following condition. The food establishment operator and the property owner both understand that this variance may be subject to revocation, suspension, or expiration as determined by the Board of Health. A variance under these regulations may be revoked, modified, or suspended only after the food service establishment has been notified in writing and given an opportunity to be heard at a regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Health. Reasons for revocation, modification, or suspension of a variance include but are not limited to a determination that food service establishment is discharging grease in quantities sufficient to cause sanitary sewer line blockages or increase maintenance of sewer lines.
So Marlene, so thank you for providing a menu, a very attractive menu. Even with the milk products, pudding, yogurt, all of that, still
Yes.
very much,
They told me that it's not yogurt as we know it, it's more of a powdered mix. So a lot of those are powdered mixes
so
mixed with water.
Panda milk, Oreo milk tea, slushes, other Thai milk tea, these are all
There will
to
be
the layperson fat products, but for your consideration, they're not.
No, they're more like in a small thing where a customer orders and we just make that portion, so we don't over portion a lot, like
So
large
nothing
quantity.
goes down, nothing goes down.
Nothing goes
Okay,
down.
I understand. Dr. Weiner.
Marlene, they still are going to need an interior grease trap,
Correct.
correct? And they still are going to need a log
correct.
to when you need to clean that interior grease trap. And if you don't keep that log up to date, you will be in violation if we decide to provide you the variance. I just want to make sure you understand that.
Yes, when we talked to the inspectors, we mentioned that we're gonna have Wind River Environmental to come in to clean the grease trap every quarterly. and they will leave us with a report, and also we will maintain a report on site.
Is that quarterly enough
For their type of
for
business,
their type
yes.
of business?
Great.
Yes. Did you own other Kong Chas?
Oh, actually, no, this is the first one.
This the first one in this region, or?
Yes.
So have you had any experience running a Kong Cha type establishment in the past?
Well, I own a restaurant in Marlboro, and my partner owns 2 restaurants, one in Natick and one in Saugus.
Okay.
So you're very familiar with grease traps?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Yeah,
to make sure.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, Kong Chas are found all over the world.
So-
Where in the mall are you moving into?
Burlington Mall, we will be located right across from the food court where there used to be, I believe, a nail salon or something like that.
Right.
Okay, all right. When are you, so you're on camera?
Yes.
When are you planning on opening? Assuming,
Yes.
assuming.
Oh, once this go through, we're still waiting for the building permit, so we just got the key last week. So we're trying, but it's gonna be some time.
All right.
I would probably say a month and a half or 2 months.
Okay.
And would you please, again, for the camera, you're on television, what types of tea are you going to be serving? Or what is your specialty tea?
Oh, well, currently, the specialty, I would say Earl Grey.
Earl
And
Grey.
it's all our tea are freshly brewed, so it's basically tea that's going to be brewed and been put in a container, and according to the customer's demand, we make individual customized tea for individual customers.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Oh, boy.
Strawberry Oreo chocolate drink. Yum.
Like a grande double latte.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. The chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the variance for Gong Cha, did I say that correctly?
Kong Cha.
90 Middlesex Turnpike for the external grease trap interceptor.
Second.
Like you're fluent. Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome to Burlington.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Oh, you're supposed to say Puka Chi.
What is it?
Of course.
You're welcome.
No, what is it?
Puka Chi.
Bukachi.
Puka Chi, yeah.
All right, along those lines, variances, Compass Group, Urest, 5 Wall Street, second floor, for the cafe, external grease interceptor.
We have a theme going here. I'm Moira Murphy, representing Compass Group.
I'm sorry, can you give us your name one more time?
Moira
Oh,
Murphy?
welcome. Welcome, Ms. Murphy. Marlene.
So Ms. Murphy is before you tonight. This is a similar establishment to the one you just
No
heard.
menu.
Where they're going to be doing coffee drinks mainly, and it's going to be private. They're going to be opening within a company known as Salesforce, which is at 5 Wall Street. So it's just for the employees of Salesforce, so it's not really open to the
So
public.
is it similar to what's in 25 Mall Road where they can make their own coffee and tea and stuff like that?
Similar.
Okay, got it.
But we'll be making it for the guests.
Right, right.
Can
So,
I get a latte?
Grande, no foam,
So.
that's all you can get.
Right, exactly.
So, so similar,
yes, and they
So-
have an internal grease interceptor. I was out there, I did a pre-operation inspection, so that's installed. The property owner will make sure that it is maintained, because they have sole responsibility of that site.
and we've had no issues
It's also
with the-
part of our audit system to make sure that the grease trap is maintained, Compass Group.
And we've had no issues with the property owner otherwise with regard to maintaining grease traps.
Well, this is new for this property, but I don't anticipate any issues.
I won't make you read everything over again. So, specialty coffees or just?
Specialty coffees,
All right.
there won't be any food.
Okay.
I just want to make it clear, who is responsible for cleaning the grease trap? Is it the owner, or is it Ms. Murphy?
In this particular case, it's the property manager.
Correct.
Because they're coming in, they're using that property, they're a client.
We're being contracted.
Yes.
So,
And I understand that,
Sure.
but then again, you have to understand, if they don't maintain, then we can revoke the variance. And
Absolutely.
you're out of business, and it's not your fault that you would be out of business. It would be their fault. So it kind of bothers me with that you're coming before us, and you're taking the responsibility for somebody else who is not here. And I'm okay with that, but you need to be vigilant, because it's your company depending upon someone else who hopefully will understand what their responsibility should be.
Even though you are gonna have much of an issue because of all this, we're very keen on.
I understand.
On this issue.
So
you-
is Compass Group. So Compass Group is one of the largest food service companies in the world, and it's part of our day-to-day checks and balances.
So you need to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. Thank you.
Okay.
Given that, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the variance for an external grease trap interceptor to Compass Group, Urest, is that what it's called? Urest, 5 Wall Street.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Welcome to Burlington.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hearings, Burlington Sitco, 161 Bedford Street, second violation, sold tobacco product to person under the age of 21.
Good evening.
Marlene, good evening. Can you sign in and give us your name, please?
Sure. Nizar Abdullah, Burlington Sitco.
Marlene?
So a compliance check was conducted on September 26 of this year, and somebody under the age of 21 went in and attempted to purchase a jewel, and was able to purchase it because no one asked for identification. So our regulations, I look back 36 months, because we've updated our regulations, and so we had a violation within that 36-month period, and that was on June 6 of 2017. So my recommendation to the board is to follow the regulations. In the case of a second violation within 36 months of the date of the current violation, the tobacco product sales permit may be suspended for 7 consecutive business days. And I made a recommendation of the date and time for that to start. That can always be adjusted by the board if you like.
So, Mr. Abdallah, you know how we feel about this.
Of course, I feel the same.
So, what are, aside from the penalty that you'll be getting, what are you going to be doing in order to make sure that Burlington Sitco is not going to come before us again?
I add the scanner. So now every purchase you have to be scanned. In the birth date, you have to be entered or scanned by the scanner.
And everybody's gonna be trained that that's the way it has to be?
Yes,
I mean,
even myself, I work behind the register. I'm a small shop. My customer, I know my customer every day. I don't have a lot of cigarette. My help made a mistake, and I punish him for it. I'm sorry about that.
We have
Now,
no-
everything you have to be scanned, and you have to be entered, the birthday.
We have
Before I
no
didn't have
choice. Mr. Abdullah, we
Yes.
have no choice. This is the rule,
Oh,
you've
yes.
seen the ordinance, you've seen
Oh, yes.
the policy.
Yes.
We find no pleasure in doing this, none, especially for a small businessman. But clearly, this is the second time.
Yeah. I mean, I train them, I make sure they don't sell it. When I work behind the register myself, my sister-in-law work, we only have 2 employees. And I know my customer every day. And anybody come in new, I just turn them away right away. And he made a mistake, and he should never did that.
so, we have a recommendation for closure or discontinuation of any sale of tobacco products from October 15th to October 22nd. You've seen that. I guess if there aren't any more questions for Mr. Abdullah, the chair will entertain a motion to via the recommendations
So I
which
just-
stem from our regulations.
So, Mr. Chairman, if we can just go over the recommended date and time for Mr. Abdullah, because he's not aware of the
Oh,
date and time.
okay.
So just want to make that clear.
Please do. I'll do it, okay. So the recommended date and time, starting Monday, October 15th, 2018, and ending at the close of business on Sunday, October 21st, 2018. Tobacco products may be sold on Monday, October 22nd, 2018.
Plus a fine, correct?
Plus a fine.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve their recommendations by the Health Director.
Second.
Good, so the recommendation is not only for the permit suspension, but also for
the
the
fine.
associated fine. Motion and second, any further discussion?
Marlene, is there any way to just make sure we can, and I know we can't enforce it, but just check that he did install the scanner when you go in and look to make sure all the tobacco products?
yeah, I can. That's not part of our regulations.
Yeah, I
Just-
understand, but just, if you can just take a look while you're there, just to make sure that it's installed. I know it's not part
When
of
is
the
it
regulation.
supposed to be installed, or
Already
hasn't?
did.
It hasn't been installed yet?
And I enter everything they been enter.
Okay.
All cigarette,
Okay.
tobacco, you have to be scanned. You are a scanner license, of course, you have to
So
look
will
at the
it be
picture.
installed before the 22nd?
Already installed.
Oh, it's already installed, oh, I'm sorry.
Already installed,
Okay, I
it's working.
misunderstood. Okay.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Please don't come back.
Thank you very much. So October 15?
Yeah, we wish you well.
Thank you.
It's just, please, we're trying to protect the
I'll
community.
just send you
Send a letter, yeah.
documentation and signs, so you'll get those to hang up. Okay. All right, thank you.
Hearings, Town Pantry, 85 Wilmington Road, third violation, sold tobacco product to person under the age of 21.
Good evening, my name is Sandeep Patel.
Mr. Patel, I don't know what to say. This is, you're in my neighborhood.
Sorry to hear
It hurts
that.
me to imagine that you are not advocating for our kids like we are. You were just here. It seems like you were just here.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So what's the story, Mr. Patel?
So the person who did it, we already fired him, and now on, we're gonna be, I'm gonna show you. The software. We put the new software in a register, which is every time you sell the tobacco product, you have to put the birth date on it, which we already installed it Friday. And also, we bought it, the new ID checker, check the ID every time you sell the cigarette. That's what we installed already. And we put the multiple sign, whoever enters the under 27 and age, we have to mandatory access ID for every one of them.
Marlene, any? This is the first time, I think, that I can remember in my tenure that we've had a third time coming before.
No, we've
us. In
had-
my
We've
tenure.
had them,
Yeah,
Noria,
Within 10 years? 11 years?
30 days, yeah.
Really?
30 days, yes.
Yikes.
When were
Well,
the
you-
other dates?
The, the current violation was September 26th of this year, and then within the last 36 months, the last one was June 6, 2018, so that was just the last compliance check before this one.
Like 2 months ago or 3 months ago?
What's that, June, July,
Yeah.
August, September, yeah. And then prior to that was May 6, 2016. So that's your 3 times within a 36-month period.
Thoughts?
Again, you're a small businessman,
Sorry to say that.
and it hurts me to have to do this, but clearly, it's Section 11, Part 1, and this continues to happen, and we're trying to protect the community, and unfortunately, this has taken place again. What is the violation for a fourth time?
The 4th time, they'll come back again, and you can give them another 30-day suspension.
Or-
Or you could even talk about revocation.
So you understand that.
I'm so serious about that. This is the third violation, is not good.
Third violation is not good, and we would hate to have to talk to you about revocation, because it's quite a good part of your business, and
60% businesses that tobacco sell.
so this is plus a fine, this is a big deal. And again, it hurts me to have to do this, but two sting operations, both you failed, correct? Is that, you both, every time we have a sting, you fail.
Within 90 days.
Within 90 days, which was it 90 days?
Well, the last one was June or something.
You know,
yeah.
so what we're saying is what's going on every day there.
And
So,
So the recommendation, Mr. Patel, is that starting Monday, October 15th, 2018, and ending at the close of business on Tuesday, November 13th, 2018, tobacco products may then be sold on Wednesday, November 14th, 2018, with a fine of, I believe it's $300.
Yes, and he's paid that.
So these are the regulations that we follow, and we hope that a 30-day
I request you for 7
freeze
days.
on your products is going to help you enforce things moving forward.
we have no choice, this is what's in the regulation, and this is, and it's not that you don't know, we've done this so many times.
We request for 7 days,
I'm sorry?
2 weeks.
So the regulations, Mr. Patel, are 30 days for a third violation, and your third violation is within 3 months.
The last time you were suspended for 7 days, it didn't matter, right? I mean,
Doesn't matter to me.
well, it didn't, because we're back here again.
This
So
is
these are
the
the-
reason, that's why I
No,
spent some money on it.
we appreciate that, but these are the rules. This is how we advocate for the town. We tell you, our rules are clearly visible. Third violation, $300 fine, 30-day penalty.
How many, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
How many, we have, for the most part, done these operations at most of all of the tobacco establishments in town?
24 of them.
24 of them, and you're the one that failed again. So it's not like that we're singling you out. In fact, as I said, it hurts me to do this. We're not singling you out, but every time we come in, you sell to someone underage. So,
The chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations by the Health Director for the suspension of the tobacco license for 30 days and a $300 fine for Town Pantry, 85 Wilmington Road, beginning on whatever dates those were.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Mr. Patel, please do not come back to us for a fourth time. Please.
I want
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
I'll send the documents and the signs to you, okay? Okay.
Staff reports, environmental engineer, good evening again, Christine.
Good evening. A couple of highlights. We had household hazardous waste on September 22nd. Thank you to everybody who pitched in. And we served 422 cars. And we had a good turnout for volunteers, the director, some board members, even Dr. Weiner on his deathbed showed up for most of the event. I tried to send him home, but he hung in there for a couple of hours.
So, I guess we can just plain put to sleep, and I'm never ever gonna say it again, that the demand has not gone down or gone away.
And to support that even further, we are enforcing no latex paint. So this is cars without latex paint. you know, And we used to take quite a bit of that.
It's amazing.
So, next point I wanted to highlight was that we are having a record year in Massachusetts for cases of West Nile virus in humans. There have been 38 cases to date as of this week, and it's the highest number of cases ever recorded in a single year since they started testing. The last highest was in 2012, when there were 33 cases. By comparison, last year, we had 6 cases.
What do we, what's the speculation?
The weather patterns, the conditions over the winter were favorable for the mosquitoes to lie dormant but not be killed. And then our pretty hot summer and very wet summer, and our continued, off and on, wet and unseasonably warmer temperatures this fall are contributing to that. So until we have a couple of nights of a hard frost, you just have to still be vigilant about mosquito protection, empty standing water, use
But no issues
repellent.
in Burlington?
No, our risk level has not been raised since, it got raised once in August when they had a positive here, but the whole state went to moderate the week after we did, so. But no issues specific to Burlington, but it's just been a record year for the state.
I just want to tell you that chikungunya and dengue continue not to be a concern in this area.
Thank you very much.
You're very
I'll-
concerned about chikungunya virus.
I'll make a note of that, thank you. Did we have extra spraying in our community?
We did.
We did, because I didn't hear, usually I hear it as it goes by, and I wasn't sure if we had done it.
Yeah, they target it by, what they find in the various traps, and they consistently sample 4 traps in Burlington. So where they found larger populations, they added some spraying dates.
I know Mr. Henley retired,
He did.
he did, and who we dealing with now?
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Off the
not a
top of my
problem.
head, I'll get back to you.
No problem, no problem.
The last thing I wanted to highlight for you is that after demolition of the former Sears Auto Building, they did their sampling in all the areas they indicated they would, and that we had requested, including the elevator pit, the oil water separator, and the acid neutralization tank, but they also sampled near every floor drain that contributed to the oil water separator, and every sample over there came out clean.
Really?
Fantastic.
It was
Wow.
it is fantastic, and it was
Wow.
a big surprise to even their environmental consultant. The LSP was, I said, are you shocked? And they said, yes, but it's good news, so,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. And they sampled above, and well, Simon sampled above and beyond what the board had put for conditions on their approval.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really good.
And that's all I had for highlights, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for our environmental engineer?
Just a thank you for the MCP environmental reports. It looks like 140 Cambridge Street Shell is really, looks like it's getting pretty clean.
It is. So it's, so the plume or the remaining contamination is now only found on the Shell station site itself and one monitoring well that's literally in the middle of Cambridge Street. But all other properties across Cambridge Street have been non-detect for years.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the environmental engineer's report.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Thank you, Christine. Health agent report, 2 reports in the system, but Marlene, anything you want to bring specifically with regard to summaries of 2 reports?
I do. So the tobacco compliance checks, 22 retailers passed. So we just had the 2 that you saw tonight that didn't pass. I want to also mention about the scanners. Everybody seems to be going, out getting these scanners. They're not foolproof. We've had people actually get a first violation because the clerk was able to take their own identification and scan it through and
Oh,
still.
geez.
So that's why, it's all about training. It's all about follow-up. And that's what I tell these folks when they have these violations, that they've got to follow through. Hang out in the corner of the store and listen. Send somebody in that that they don't know that is under 21 and see if your employee sells them a tobacco product. Better you to find out than us to find out. So, so these are the kind of conversations that I have with these folks, so.
I mean, it wouldn't, it bothers me in general, but it wouldn't bother, but it bothers me even more because we have been such advocates for this issue. We've been on TV, we have had meetings, we have had experts coming. We have had people tell us, we're gonna change everything, and so it's just, it's very concerning to me. But what you're saying about the scanner is even more concerning to me, so.
Right.
I'm very glad we
Not
followed our
foolproof.
regulations. Yeah, I'm very
They're
glad we
not
followed our regulations. So we will continue to do these things, and we'll continue to hope that that our town works with us on advocating for our children. And if there's any question about why we are so involved and relentless on this, please read our regulations. There's data in there that shows exactly why we are concerned about this. And our regulations are available on the website.
And we're talking about electronic cigarettes now.
Yes,
I
we
mean,
are.
one of the failures was an electronic.
This was a jewel cell.
A jewel cell, and we've seen this nationally, issues with jewels all over the place, and so it's transcended a pack of cigarettes. Now it's an extremely expensive jewel cell or jewel setup. So I think the community needs to be aware that we mean business here, and
But I think you said it very well, Dr. Weiner. You know, we're at a crossroad where we're advocating for the business owner, but we are here because of the consumer. But it gives me no pleasure to have a person whose business is 60% tobacco sales put on suspension for 30 days.
30 days.
That's, if anything, please, everyone, listen to that and don't come before us. I'm sorry, Marlene,
No, that's fine.
I digress.
Did
But thank
anyone
you
have
very
any-
much for that statement on the scanner. It's very
Sure.
important.
Did anyone have any questions with my reports?
Just Mad Dragon, are we all set with Mad Dragon?
We are, yes.
Thank you. So that we put that in the cold.
Right.
That's the liquid nitrogen that we're all set with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And somebody actually called about a lemonade stand. I thought that was
They
awesome when I
did,
saw that.
they
yeah.
did, yeah.
Any other questions for our health agent? If not, the chair will entertain a motion for approval of her report.
So moved. Oh, go ahead. Second.
Motion and seconding for the discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you very much, Marlene.
You're welcome.
Director.
Yes, so just a reminder that our flu clinic and full-scale exercise will be held on October 20th at Memorial School for 12 to 3 for the public. So it's open to the public from 12 to 3. So our schedule will start at 9 a.m. We'll start having volunteers coming in around 10 a.m., and then 10:30. So our medical volunteers will come first, and then we'll have some just-in-time trainings for them, and we'll be dispensing vaccine to volunteers, and then open to the public at 12, closing at 3.
So for our folks who are wondering, why do they have it at the high school one day and Memorial another time? Why are we doing that?
So both locations are identified in our emergency dispensing site plan as where we will hold an emergency dispensing site. So we are doing it to test our plan. So right now, our primary location is Burlington High School, and our secondary location is Memorial School. But I am working with the Region 4AB emergency planners to switch that around, because I think Memorial School works a little bit better than the high school. So I'd like to make the Memorial School our primary location and the high school our secondary location. So what that involves is the emergency planners are going to be coming out and doing a site visit at Memorial School, and we'll go through the entire school with the facilities department at the school system and talk about what we need the school to have to be, a primary location. They'll be looking at things like where's the loading dock, and, where would the supplies come in, where would the pallets be stored, pallets of medications if we needed that. So all those things we're gonna go through with the emergency planners and then tweak our emergency dispensing site plan for that. So I'm gonna be doing that after, in November, after the clinic, the drill is over, we'll be looking at that.
Where's, and I don't mean to digress, but where's our primary shelter site? Is it the high school?
No, so one of the things that we identified when we were talking about doing a drill, for a shelter drill, was that the high school generator doesn't have the capacity to power up the area that we would need, the entire area. So the emergency management director had gone back to MEMA and talked to them about that, and MEMA said, well, you have to have the whole place on emergency generator. So now our primary location for a shelter drill is the 61 Center Street building, because when they did the renovations to the building, one of the things that we asked them to do based on a previous shelter drill was that they should have a generator there that can generate the entire building. So they do now. So that whole building will work on generator if the power is up.
Do you remember our previous directors and the complaints about the generator and how it never seemed to kick on or work? So that's awesome that we have that solved.
I came out in a snowstorm, as you remember, to come in and to check the generator, and I came in and it was not working, and we lost all our vaccine. But in the middle of a raging snowstorm, I came because we had heard that it had kicked off. And yes, it had kicked off, and thank goodness we have had it replaced. But yeah, we lost all of our vaccine, if you remember, in that snowstorm.
Wow. So, any other questions?
One quick question. Many times in your reports, you mention different programs, and I've never heard you mention, at least publicly, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And would you just explain what that is?
So that is something that the planning department is going through and asked other departments to participate in. So Christine and I had gone to that meeting, and it's to identify areas of vulnerability for the town in emergency situations. And it's the beginning process of that now, so that was the initial meeting for that. And then there will be more meetings to come on that, and it will end in a public forum or public presentation on the findings of that.
What is a vulnerability? Can you give us an example?
So one example might be, you need areas of flooding. You might want to identify where's an area of flooding and what can you do to kind of alleviate that.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a little bit like, we had done this before with MEMA, we did a hazards analysis. It's a little bit like that.
So, just to kind of top off this discussion, I think you mentioned the use of the Juul products. Director's report has a graph showing 4-week retail market share performance of different tobacco products, mostly the vaping products. In 2018, actually the last measured was in August of 2018, over almost 75% of the retail share performance, the market share, was Juul products. I think that's, and all the other products have gone down. So Juul is where people are going to now, where our kids are going to, and that's why I am doubly pleased that we followed our regulations with regard to this, because this was a Juul cell. So, but that's quite a remarkable piece of information that you've supplied in your report, so thank you for that.
And then one last thing, so we're going to be, the Samaritans are coming out to do a presentation for our MRC volunteers, but also for the public, on identifying those at risk for suicide. And that's gonna be October 24th, 7 to 9 p.m. at Grandview Farm. So everyone's
Wow.
invited to that. We're asking you to give us a call, let us know if you're coming, so we can get an idea of how many are gonna be coming. But it's gonna be, open to everyone.
So can you give that date again?
October 24th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Grandview Farm.
Wow, that's great.
Fantastic.
Nursing
Very,
CEUs?
very important.
No.
No, okay.
Any other questions for our director? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve her report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0. Thank you. Any other issues, concerns, new business, topics for next discussion? If,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we just need to reiterate that we have a flu clinic. Please get your flu shot. There was some adjusted numbers that have just recently been released, showing that approximately 80,000 people last year died of the flu, the seasonal flu. We know that the flu shot is not 100% effective, but as a physician, you continue to tell me it's very important to get one.
the difference between someone who gets the flu, who has had the flu shot, and someone who gets the flu without the flu shot is a significant difference. The worse for the person who does not have at least some protection from the flu shot. Please get the flu shot unless your doctor has told you that you should not do so. We are all advocates for influenza vaccination. But let me just say, in the meantime, if you have any signs or symptoms of cold or flu, please try to, as we're entering the season, please remember to try to quarantine yourself. Please try to isolate your sneezing, protecting yourself and others, and above anything else, wash your hands. So, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Be safe.
Good night.